no zoom in. Now what you're looking at, we consider to be the pride of our mind and the pride of the tour, because this is the only remaining intact and tourable deep anthracite mine shaft left in the region. We consider this to be a two-compartment shaft based on the simple fact that it has two independently controllable elevators. Now, note of these elevators is that the miners didn't actually control them from down here. Instead, they used a system of simple steam whistles or signals, soon were to be made electric as well, and you can actually see those signals out in the museum, to notify an individual back out on the surface what these lifts needed to do. Now to get there, notice the steel cables that run up off of the elevators. Those cables climb 190 feet back above us towards the surface, where they arrive at a structure called the head frame, a picture of which you can see in the placard here to the left. Now at the head frame, the cables wound over massive steel wheels, where they then would make their way back down the surface of the mountain for a distance, and arrive at a place we call the hoisting house, or the hoisting engine. There, the hoisting engineer, or hoisting operator, used his control systems to maneuver these lifts all throughout the additional levels of the mine. Here in the 9, we go down for 4 levels in total. Right now, we are all standing on level 1. 2 is right below us, followed by 3, which is a little further, followed by 4, which is a little further still. In total, what you are looking at is a 725-foot deep mine shaft. Now, as you look at the shaft, more specifically the elevators, or cages they're actually referred to, you may have noticed the lack of any kind of real safety. Those handles you see hanging from the roofs were the only things the miners had to hold on to keep them inside these elevators when they were running, because there were no railings, nor were there any doors. Those would have only slowed down cars that were coming through the lifts. So aside from that, the only thing that actually keeps anyone safe would have been those roofs, which are called bonnets. Those are there solely to protect the equipment and by extent anyone or thing on them from whatever could have succumbed to gravity, debris falling down the shaft, perhaps a dropped tool. Now aside from the shaft, the other point of interest in this area is the concrete structure you may have noticed on your right. Now there's many like this throughout the mine. Another one's just up the passage here, you'll see as we make our way further. There's another one more important I'll show you later. But this one served a number of different purposes. The most obvious one is that this was a waiting area for the miners as they waited for the elevators to come up and take them down to their specific level of the mine. Now, as you look at the shaft, as we call it, you may have noticed the thermometer on the door frame. That needle does not move. I can't say that anymore, I gotta get used to that. That needle does in fact move. However, the mine usually stays around an average of 50 degrees. The difference here is that the shaft goes right up to the surface. It's kind of like a wind tunnel, so this area can actually get colder. I've seen that needle dip below the 40 mark. Now, the temperature does have an interesting effect. It does not allow the water to freeze, except for really outside, close to the portal. Those icicles can go from the roof to from the ceiling to the floor, believe me. With the water not being able to freeze, along with the absence of any constant drainage that I mentioned earlier, the water has actually been allowed to return to its natural resting point inside the water table, that being about 30 feet just below the bottom of our second level. So levels 3 and 4 are completely underwater and they're totally inaccessible. You'll actually have a chance to see that because just up ahead there's an overlook which will allow you to lean over and look straight down this mine shaft. So the water resting about 130 feet below us. Now, it is a steel grate. It'll hold you. However, I cannot promise the same for any loose items you may have. A camera, cell phone, loose glasses, headwear, whatever you might have. Because if it does fit through the bars and ends up doing so, it is never coming back up here again. Believe me, the trip to the second level isn't worth anything.